Good evening, Dolphin fans. You don't have to be a Dolphin fan to watch the show, but it is the Finns Talk Sports Network. Welcome to Finns Talk Overtime. It's been a while. Why? Because me and Greg have been on all these other shows, from Real Talk Finns Talk to the pregame show to the postgame shows to Finns Talk Today to all these shows that we haven't had time for ourselves. And our regularly scheduled programming on Thursdays got overrun by College Blitz and the baseball playoffs and Finns TV Plus. So we are rescheduling ourselves to Friday night because Greg said to me on Sunday, I think it's time we do our own show. And maybe I thought Brett might show up. But Brett, of course, working. We're going to have to do a show like at 4 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock in the morning in order for Brett to show up. But Greg, how you doing this week? I know we talked a little bit, but you had a really fun week with your family so far? That's visiting?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's been a great week. My daughter and her family, my 2 grandkids, one almost 3 months and the other one 3 years old, have come down to Florida to visit. So been spending the last since Wednesday with them, just basically swimming in the pool. And today we went to Disney World. So we had a great time today. And then I have more family coming in tonight. My brother, my sister-in-law, and their 2 adult children are coming into town tonight to see my grandkids as well. So they're a big part of the family, and I haven't seen my brother in about 6-8 months. So it's going to be a good time. I'm looking forward to it. We're all getting together tomorrow again, so it'll be great.
That's phenomenal. So guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. As you know, the show is brought to you by Caneswear. Don't forget to check them out at caneswear.com. The Hurricanes are doing great, but our Dolphins aren't doing so much. Luckily for Greg and I, from the other side, because if you caught on deck yesterday, is that his Cubs are still in it. My Jays have made it to the ALCS, so at least on the baseball side, things are going well. Tomorrow, him and I maybe we'll make a side bet at the end before the end of the show because my Canadians are facing his Blackhawks tomorrow in hockey. So we'll have a few fun things for Greg and I to talk about. But that's not why we're here. Today we're here to talk about our passion, the people that give us joy, but then all of a sudden bring us back down to earth, and that is our Miami Dolphins. So, Greg, all off season when we had a couple of shows of overtime, we talked about how this team was not where they should be. This team was struggling mightily towards the end of last season, and when we got that news that Greer and McDaniel would be back, we spent most of the off season, you, myself, Brett, everybody talking about even after the draft, and we're going to talk about the different draftees tonight again, that this did not look like this was going to be a great team. Maybe a 7-8 win team, maybe not a playoff team, and that this team was fundamentally flawed. But no, the topic of today's show is I would like my 2025-26 season back. I feel like I wish we can go back in time, or let's already get to draft season because this has just been painful. If you look at it after 5 games, we're 1-4, and every single solitary thing that we could have predicted would happen in this season has happened. We're going to dig into it, but after the first 5 weeks, are you at a high level? Are you more disappointed? Are you okay? This is what I expected. Or have there been moments where you've seen anything positive? Like right now, what is your scale of that? Like, where are you in terms of just the first 5 weeks of the season? Where are you right now after our assessments leading into the year?
I'd be lying to myself if I said that I wasn't disappointed. I'll say it that way, right? Steve Malloy, our friend and colleague, he talks about hopium and things like that. You always come into the season with a little bit of hope, or a lot of hope, and things needed to go right, all right, and one of the things that we talked about was there were some flaws on this team that were readily identifiable, for lack of a better term, right? We knew the secondary was going to struggle for the most part, but we thought the front 7 might be better. We thought the defense could play better. We liked Weaver, all right, as the defensive coordinator. Can he come up with some different, pressure packages and things like that? We're kind of getting our players back again, all right? So is the defense going to be, are they going to be respectable? Are they going to be good? They played well last year, right? And sitting after 5 games, they're one of the worst defenses in the league. All right. They can't stop the run. Okay. And we all worried about them stopping the pass. And I even made a comment, okay, that Miami might be really good against the run this year on defense because teams are just going to throw the ball all the time, right? The secondary is a weakness and things like that. And it's completely the opposite, all right? Teams are running at will against this team to the point where Weaver said today, something like, or is it today or something that he goes, well, like only 6 runs accounted for like 140 of the 200 yards.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not a good thing. Okay? That's not good.
I can't believe he said that. When I heard him say that, I go, are you basically saying that for the majority of the game you stopped the run well, and if it wasn't for the 5 or 6 plays? That's not good.
I was like, it's just like, let's just forget about those. All right, no, those don't count. What kind of crap is that? But anyway, and then on offense is kind of what they are. All right, this offense has been kind of shut down for the last year and a half. All right, and one of the things we talked about was, okay, did they learn how to beat the defense that's shutting them down? And after 5 weeks, it's basically no. All right. Now, all of that being said, one of the things that I was counting on, or not counting on, but one of the things I said in the offseason was for the Dolphins to be better than I expected, that I wanted them to be, that I thought that they were going to be, all right, was that the draft class was going to have to play really, really well, okay? The draft class was going to have to come in and really perform and, basically exceed expectations. And again, the opposite happened. All right. Our top 2 picks are among the worst players at their positions in the league right now. And when you come in with a limited team and then the draft picks that you expected to perform are not performing, that gets you to 1-4, and basically all kinds of doom and gloom right now. You lose Tyreek Hill, arguably the best player on your offense. All right. Again, this being said, it doesn't look good moving forward, but there have been some very good individual players. All right. I'll point out 2. Achane has played phenomenally well. All right. The first 5 weeks. Me and you have talked. I don't like him being an every down running back, but you know what? He makes plays when he touches the ball, and I understand it. I just wish they would use him more in the passing game, to be honest with you, and less in the running game. And then the other player, Minkah Fitzpatrick, has quietly had a very, very good year. He, for a secondary that needed a lot of help, he has kind of provided some stabilization back there. And because of it, in my opinion, the secondary is playing a lot better than I thought they would. Yeah. So, but it's 1-4, and I'm sorry, I don't want to steal the lead here, but I expect them to be 1-5 after come about 4:30 on Friday or Sunday.
So let's talk about going back the preseason. The writing was sort of on the wall. They really looked sluggish in the preseason, which already reiterated what we saw in the offseason. The only thing that right away that stood out for me in the preseason was Ollie Gordon. But now Ollie Gordon is not being utilized. Jalen Wright's not being utilized. It's all Achane all day, all the time. First game of the season, I considered that a loss only because I didn't know what to expect from the Colts, and it was on the road. And I didn't have faith in the fact that the Dolphins were going to perform well just because of the fact that I've been hard on McDaniel and Tua for the entire offseason. But to get pummeled that way, fine. You lose your first game. Then you come home and you play a Patriots team on a Sunday where they are in the shade. You're in the shade, they're in the sun. And if it not for Devon Achane's foot going out of bounds, they would have won. But the fact that they had the chance to come back, had the chance to win, and they couldn't do it, that was their first blown loss. Then you go into Buffalo on a short week. And once again, you play competitive. You could not stop the run there. You couldn't stop James Cook. You could not stop Josh Allen, but you stayed competitive. Once again, Tua has the ability to win a football game. We don't utilize the run, and Tua cost us a football game with a very, very poor interception. Then you have Monday Night Football, which the team literally should have been won by 20 or 30 points, but they took the foot off the gas and almost cost them the game and only won on Monday Night Football by 6 points. And the tickets were going for under $20 a ticket. Okay, on a Monday Night Football game, prime time. Now you come to last week. 17-0 lead. Okay, 17-0 lead. They're doing the dances they were doing in the 2023 season. They're jumping for joy, like they've already won the game. Darren Waller being utilized without Tyreek there and is having a phenomenal half. There's 10:38 left in the first quarter, in the second quarter, and all of a sudden the Dolphins thought the game was over. They thought the game was over. They didn't realize you actually have to play 60 minutes, and everything they did for the first 20, just under 20 minutes of the game went out the window. Forget about Darren Waller. Forget about the checkdowns to Achane. Forget about what was actually working for you, and let's start doing stupidity, and let's go 5 consecutive punts, not score as they start to come back, start taking boneheaded penalties. Then they take a lead. Tua gets it to Waddle. He underthrew that ball, mind you. Then they let them go right back down the field right away. Then with Tua, that was one of all the drives that he's had. New England, Buffalo, and then this game. That was one of the worst 3 and outs I've ever seen. One, he missed the first throw. Then, if it wasn't for Waddle, if it wasn't for Waddle, that would have been an interception. And then he gets sacked. And then they think that they're going to punt the ball, and then they're going to stop it when you know that Jack Jones has been handsy, and they blow that game. And you say to yourself, everything that we predicted, Tua not looking right, McDaniel not looking right, misusing Achane, the defense being overwhelmed by the fact that they drafted a lot of rookies and there were no veterans there, a meager offensive line. The writing was on the wall. The problem was that the Dolphins have not played a 60-minute football game in the McDaniel era. So what frustrates me about this season is it's just we're biding our time. Like, I love talking about this team. I love being around it. There's so many great podcasts. Everyone's going and talk. It's the problem I'm having, and just you can recap what I just said, and we're going to go through the defense, the offense, Tua's comments this week, McDaniel's comments this week, Ross, the reports out there about everything. But when you look at the recap of what I said, it's like this is a bottom 5 football team because they can't win. They can't win in clutch moments. They can't come back, and they think, and they started having a good time. You're 1-3 on the road, and you're go on the first 2 touchdowns because you have a 17-0 lead. You think the game is over? This is the NFL, and as you all have always taught me, 17 points in the NFL is nothing, Greg. It's nothing. So when you look at that encapsulation, not specific people, we're going to go through that. But when you look at that quick summary of those 5 games, how could anyone think that this was not anticipated based on the fundamental breakdown of the Miami Dolphins seasons where they've lost 5 in a row multiple times, and they've in the time of moments where they need to win key football games, they don't do it in the McDaniel era. So why should this be any surprise? I was not surprised that they lost last week because it's a very Miami Dolphins thing to do. So when you look at the overall, if you had to pick a game where they played their best and which game where they played their worst, what would you say? If you look at not the score, but where do you think that they actually played their best and where they actually played their worst?
Well, the Indianapolis game to start the season was by far their worst game. All right, they basically just did not show up for that game. All right, and that's inexcusable. All right, the best game they probably played was probably Buffalo, and they lost by 2 scores. Okay, the thing with Carolina and let's not sugarcoat this. All right. The thing with Carolina is they were up 17-0. In the first 20 minutes of that game, everything went right for them. They created turnovers. They scored touchdowns. Okay. They possessed the ball. All right. They had the ball for almost 16 minutes in that first 20 minutes of the game. All right. And then they lost the time of possession when the entire game was complete, which means over the last 40 minutes, they only had the ball about 13 minutes of it. All right. Carolina had the ball for 27 minutes. All right. So if you look at the stats overall in the game, it's a pretty balanced game. But if you actually watch the game, you'll understand why Miami's defense was dog tired at the end of it. All right. They couldn't get off the field. And then when Miami had the ball on offense, they couldn't get a first down. All right. They had 5 possessions of punts, okay, where they got 1 first down in it.
And you said on the post-game show, you actually recounted it. The average time of possession was what? The max was 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes?
It was 2.5 minutes. In 5 possessions, the maximum amount of time they had the ball was 2.5 minutes. All right. Even on the touchdown, they only ran 4 plays or something like that because it was a long play, right? Yeah. The last 7 possessions of the game, they didn't possess the ball for over 2.5 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. You can't win that way. Not in the NFL. All right. They didn't turn the ball over. They didn't commit an excessive amount of penalties. All right. But you got to do something on offense. All right. They lost that as bad as the defense was. And trust me, the defense was horse crap. Okay. They allowed over 200 and some odd yards rushing. Okay. They couldn't stop anybody. But as bad as it was, you were still up 17-0. Okay. The defense gives up a touchdown. It's 17-10 when you get the ball back. The game is still in your hands offensively. All right. And they did nothing. They did absolutely nothing. And one of the, and we'll get into this, but one of the things that's kind of really irked me this week, as opposed to other weeks, and this kind of irks me every week, but for this week especially, because this game should not have been a loss. A well-coached game, a well-played game, and this game should not have been a loss after that first 20 minutes. But what irked me was, okay, they came back out and they said, well, the defense was a little bit different. That's why we didn't target Waller, okay, for the last however many minutes of the game. The entire second half.
The last 40 minutes of the game.
Okay.
35 minutes of the game.
You know what? And I talk about this all the time. Coaches want to make the game more difficult than it is, all right? And Tua, in a way, wants to make the game more difficult than it is. The play call comes in. You know the concept. You know what Darren Waller is going to run, okay? Throw the ball to him.
Yeah.
All right? It doesn't have to be your first read.
He's 6'6", Greg.
Yes.
The field is 6'6".
Give him a chance, okay? He might be covered. So what? All right? You need to make plays down the field at all times of the game.
Ryan Fitzpatrick was throwing to Devontae Parker, who was known for 0 separation every single time.
But again, it's just the excuse that the defense was playing something different and therefore you didn't target him. 1, that's on the coach, but 2, it's also on the quarterback.
Yeah.
Okay. The quarterback has to be able to say, I'm going to give my playmakers a chance to make a play. And you know what? And he might have been able to throw the ball to him, 4 or 5 times in that span and not complete a ball. But he's still a playmaker that you've identified over the last 2 weeks. You still got to get him a chance.
Yeah.
All right. It's not a game of X's and O's so much as it is Jimmy and Joe's. All right. Give your guys a chance to make plays. And by not throwing the ball to Waller for 30 plus minutes in the game, not even targeting him, it's malpractice. Okay. And to blame it on the defense is just, that irks me. All right. What Weaver said irks me. Okay. What Tua said irks me because you know what? Fine. Don't go to social media. but at least have some empathy for your fans.
So let's talk about that. Let's go.
Yeah,
You brought up Tua. Let's talk about Tua.
Yeah,
So Tua's performance so far this year, the Omar Kellys of the world and people like that, I respect. I watch them. I read what they have to say. Stats mean absolutely nothing in football. Most people who have high-end stats in the league don't win much because it's a team game. Quarterback stats are for the quarterback to get their contracts. That's about it. For him to lose the way that he lost, where he had the chance 3 times out of 4, for him to say he doesn't go on social media, the fact, I understand you want to separate and you're able to, but there's no way that the media people at the Dolphins are not sharing with you what people are saying. You know that there are airplanes flying over the stadium. And the fact that you actually don't look like you're pissed, you don't look like you're mad, you don't look like you're frustrated, and that you're that calm irks people. I think Tua, and tell me if I'm wrong, I really don't think Tua cares about winning football games. I think he loves to play the game of football, but his passion isn't to win football games, because when he throws an interception, he doesn't get that upset and he goes to sit with Darrell Bevel and can have a laugh. He doesn't get angry. He doesn't have the competitive eye. He doesn't have the eye of the tiger. He doesn't have that fire to win football games. So when he says what he says, and Jim Rome said this early in the year. I don't know if you ever watched Jim Rome, but I pick up. I don't love the guy, but I pick up the Dolphins have actually been worse at the podium with the nonsense and the dribble, and we'll get to McDaniel after, the dribble, than actually on the field. Who on the field looks ridiculous, but then when he actually opens his mouth, he sounds 10 times worse. So to continue on that point, when you hear with how he has talked as an NFL quarterback, making over on the cap over $53 million, and this is his reaction to a 1-4 record, why does that irk you?
Well, yeah, and there's got to be a media relations person in Miami. I don't know who that person is right now. But they should be fired. Okay, the faces of your franchise, the people who are representing you to the media on a week in, week out basis, continue to go up in front of the fans through the media and just spout nonsense. All right. And it's just to not understand where the fan perspective is. Or like I said, you don't stay off social media. Fine. Go home. Your kids don't care whether you won or lost. I understand all of that. Okay. But be a little bit of emotional. Say, we're letting people down. We're not playing well enough. Get pissed. Okay, I mean, it has to come from a genuine place. I mean, we'll sense it if you fake it, but how you cannot approach it that way, I don't understand. And the stuttering and muttering that Mike McDaniel does is just brutal to hear. All right. And then Tua not taking much accountability or any accountability for anything, all right, that he does wrong. That last series was horse crap.
It was ridiculous.
Okay. It just, and for him to not acknowledge that it was horse crap, kind of pisses you off, and it should piss you off as a fan. Okay. And then Anthony Weaver saying, well, yeah, except for 6 plays, that we gave up 200 yards or whatever it was. Everything was fine. Kiss my ass. All right.
But he's learning that. He went to the Mike McDaniel School of Press Conferences.
Yeah. And it is disappointing, again, as a professional, okay, as somebody who I think of myself as being high up in my field, okay, if I put that crap out in the internet and things like that, based on a bad performance by me, I would be pissed, and my company would be pissed at me. I don't know how Ross sits there and looks at this and says, okay, it's one thing to be bad on the field, but to be bad at the media, the way they are, it's inexcusable. It just
because Greg, you had season tickets for 15 years. When you go to Hard Rock and you see what Tom Garfunkel has done, and what they've done with the Dolphins Cancer Challenge, and what they've done with F1, and what they've done with the Miami Open, and what they've done to have soccer there, and to make it a destination for people to want to go to and have that experience. The business side of the Dolphins is phenomenal. PR-wise, the business side of the Dolphins is phenomenal in what they do for the community. How could you be so polar opposite on the football field? Like, how can you be so obtuse and so ignorant and incompetent when it comes to putting together a football team? And that's your main job. The other stuff is supplementary. This is the main point. The Miami Dolphins are first and foremost a football team, and it's what they do the worst.
Well, it not only what they do the worst, the entire media relations around it is just wrong. I mean, look, there are plenty of bad football teams in the NFL. Okay, and yeah, I don't follow them as much as I follow the Miami Dolphins, obviously. All right, but I don't hear this. I consume a lot of football, and I don't hear the stupid stuff that comes out of the Miami Dolphins organization on a weekly basis. All right, you just don't. All right, okay. The coach for Arizona had to apologize. All right, for being emotional on the sideline and for kind of shoving, slapping, whatever it was to the player who dropped the ball before he crossed the goal line. All right, he had to apologize for that. Yeah, all right, he was emotional apologizing for that. He did it well. All right, it was a crap game. That was a game no team had any business losing, and he was pissed. All right, I understand that, but he did it well. The media part of
Mike McDaniel wouldn't even have reacted. No, Mike McDaniel would still be in his play call sheet.
There was nothing. There's nothing this year media-wise that the Miami Dolphins have done well. And it just got dark in my. For some reason, my light just went out. Anyway, sorry about that.
It's okay. It's very, very romantic for you.
Yeah, I got.
But I just want to add to that. So let's take Mike McDaniel for a second. He was asked about Stephen Ross. It's kind of an obvious answer, and we're going to get to some of the news that happened today with Finn Faithful and all that, and Tony Pauline, and we'll get. But when he's asked if he's frustrated, he's really frustrated, just like I was. We talked about the challenge ahead to get ready for the Chargers, and that was really extensive. He has the right to share his frustration. Of course, he's a freaking owner. What I don't understand is that they are even showing cameras where Mike McDaniel walking into the tunnel, no glasses, looks disheveled, looks completely lost for words and lost for anything. Like, if you're a team, like I go, he doesn't represent, and he looks like he doesn't look like a guy who wants to be there anymore. Right? You know that feeling where there are moments where we all have in our job where you're like, why am I still doing this? He actually doesn't look like he's enjoying himself. And not just because they're winning and losing. It's the fact that I think he knows he's failed. And I think he knows that he's a disappointment. And he can't, obviously you're not going to, there's 32 jobs in the NFL. You're not going to quit. But he actually doesn't look like somebody who thinks he can turn this around, because there's no sense from him. There's no urgency there. There's not going to be any changes to the lineup. There's not going to be. He's not going to change anything, right? If you think they're not going to change the way they do anything this week, they're not, because what has proven that they are going to, like Mike McDaniel on the football field, is happy before the game, giving his beautiful daughter a hug, and he sees his wife, and he does his thing, and Tua goes on the field early 4 hours before with Darrell Bevel, and they go throw around, and they plan everything out, but nothing's changing. They don't look like they've adapted from game 1 to game 5. They've actually gotten worse. And the reason why, and so what are your thoughts on that before I actually connect ourselves to the Giants game a little bit? But what is your thoughts on that?
Well, as a former coach, okay, and granted, I've said this many times, I've coached in high school and I coached at Division III at college, all right? I played Division III college, all right? I am not anywhere near this level. But I've learned stuff about coaches, and all coaches are basically the same in a way. All right. When you're early in the season and you don't have answers, you're just beaten. All right. You're just, and I get that sense from Mike McDaniel right now. I get that sense from the coaching staff and the organization, is that they're just beaten down right now. They don't have an answer. They know they're playing like crap. And there are just certain things that this team cannot do that they wish they could do. And it's getting just hammered down their throat every week by the opponent. All right. Carolina didn't do anything surprising. All right. If you watch the all 22, there's nothing there. There's nothing that you shouldn't have picked up from
They're
games.
not a good football team.
They're not a good football team. They turned the ball over early. You took advantage of it. And then they didn't do anything just to stop you, essentially. Not anything surprising, I should say it that way. All right. It was just the same old stuff over and over again, and you couldn't beat it. All right. It was, and I was on both sides of the ball. All right. And as a coach, if you can't beat something that the defense is doing or the offense is doing, there's no reason for them to change it. And you're basically stuck at that point. And that's what I see in McDaniel. All right. Do I think McDaniel should be fired? Absolutely. Okay. He shouldn't have been fired after the Thursday night game, in my opinion. All right. But I understand where he's coming from. Okay. And I also understand why I just railed on him about being bad in front of the media. All right. I also understand that he can't come out and just say, this player sucks, that player sucks, this player sucks, we suck, and all this other stuff. He can't say that in front of the media and the fans, right?
You say I suck.
Well, but he can take a little bit of blame himself.
He doesn't take blame. They don't. Haven't you noticed no one takes individual responsibility for themselves, and that's sort of spreading out to Weaver. Like Weaver, Greg, has lost all the opportunity to get a head coaching job, and he sort of sounds like Mike McDaniel, where he tries to justify it. He looked like he was going bananas on the turnovers against the Panthers, but then his defense went to crap, became horse crap again. So even Mike, all of them sound like they may be able to get their words out a little bit better than that dweeb, but at the same time, they all talk the same way. There's always an excuse. There's no sense of accountability or responsibility for the loss.
Well, yeah, and I'm going to go back to it as a coach again. All right. In high school, in Division III, all right, there are games you are playing that you're just figuring out how not to lose as badly as you're going to lose, okay? The team on the other side has way more talent. It has way better players, and, it's not the NFL where everything's close, okay? You're going to get your butt kicked on any certain game. So how do you play that game, okay? How do you keep it close, all right? How do you come up with different things to keep your kids interested? All right. That's part of coaching. And part of what you do is you remain disciplined. Okay. Don't commit dumb turnovers. Don't commit dumb penalties. All right. On defense, maintain your gaps. All right. All right, if my kid shows up in the A gap when he's supposed to be in the A gap and gets blown up, well, at least he was there, okay? What I see on this team is there's no discipline. There's nothing there on defense. Those 6 plays or whatever that we were talked about, all right? His defense was all over the place. You could drive a truck through there, okay? The guys running through there, well, who's supposed to be in that gap?
Someone screamed fire. Someone said fire, and they all just scattered.
Yeah.
They all just scattered.
And it's the same thing on offense, okay? Joseph Savania, all right, every game this year, all right, has basically allowed an inside pass rush on a pass set when he knew that the center was working away from him. It's football 101. It's offensive guard play 101, saying if the center is working away from me in this protection, I cannot allow inside pressure. And yet he's constantly doing it. He's constantly giving up inside pressure. All right. If you want to say it's a lack of talent that's causing this, and Severnaya can't play at this level, fine. But he still has to be disciplined enough to at least attempt to do the right thing. Okay? And as a coach, you have to instill in that person to do the right thing. You might get beat. You might get beat like a drum. All right? But not there. All right? You're a 330-pound guy. You cannot get beat inside in these pass protection schemes. And yet he does. And it's happened, like I said, almost every week for the last 5 weeks. And that part drives me nuts. Okay? And when I evaluate coaching, it's not necessarily on wins and losses. It's doing those types of things over and over again. Not making the same mistakes twice. All right? Not making the same mistake from 1 week to the next. All right? If Joseph Severnaya gets beat some other different way, fine, but it's not that way, because we identified that way a week ago and said, you're not doing that again. But we don't see that. We don't. It drives me nuts. You know, right? And it's only 5 weeks in the season, and I look at this.
12 more games.
There's still 12 more games.
There's still 12 more games.
And we're still going to see more of it. And it's just going to be like, you got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me.
If you think that Mike McDaniel had to go through 700 plays of Tua to figure out how good of a quarterback he is, what's his name? Whoever the future head coach of this team is going to have basically needs to show tape of everything that he did. There's nothing on tape that he's going to show that's positive. Like nothing. There's absolutely nothing. I want to ask this question, and then we're going to talk about the individual players. But if you had to guess, and I'll let people in the comments who are also, and I'll wait a couple minutes.
Yes.
If you had to guess, of the last 35 draft picks, going back to the beginning of the rebuild, 35 draft picks, how many are still on the Dolphins roster? Of the 35 that have been drafted at the beginning of the rebuild, that's 6 years, how many players are actually still on the Dolphins roster?
It can't be that many, because, I mean, it's probably less than half. It's probably way less than half, maybe a third, maybe 8 to 10.
Yes, let's see if Brett's actually going to figure it out. I'll let Brett answer if he wants to. Brett can't come on our show, but he could watch from work. Wow.
Well, he's watching from work.
Brett, name us a time and place where we actually could have you on a show. So you let us know. But we're not answering yet.
Yeah, and for people in the chat, 7. Yeah,
7.
For people in the chat, you know, Evan, Brett, and I, and we text each other and talk to each other all the time. We're always constantly giving Brett crap because he works these weird hours every day.
Exactly. But by the way, and he got a new job, so congratulations. I hope the new job's going well, but like his hours are worse. But no, 7. 20%. 20% of the players that they've drafted since the rebuild are still on this team. We know who most of them are, right? You have most of them are still on the team right now. If you have Tua, you have Waddle, you have Achane, you have Jalen Wright, you have Ollie Gordon, Kenneth Grant. You have the new guys, but I'm saying prior to this year, the only people I can think of are Tua, Wright, Devon Achane, Liam Eichenberg, Austin Jackson.
Yeah.
That's it on the offensive line. On the defensive line, you have I'm not counting Kenneth Grant. No one on the D line. Literally no one on the D line. Maybe you still have McMorris still on the roster somewhere. Like it's literally 7. Like there's nobody. They have story. You can't even count Kader Kohu because he's an undrafted rookie. You can't count Storm Duck. It's literally nothing. How many all pros? How many all pros in his career took over Howard? The only player leads to Tyreek. Yeah, the rest is just man. Exactly. So no, it's really the definition. So if you want to go look at the defense right now, secondary doesn't bother me. But Jack Jones knew who he was. He's handsy. It is what it is. But if I'm him, how else am I supposed to stop these guys? And I'm doing everything I possibly can. The linebackers are being overused and so are the quarter. We talked about this on the pregame, on all this last couple of shows we've done on pregame and on Real Talk, that these linebackers are tackling machines. Our corners are tackling machines because they're the one. The D line can't do nothing, and on the D line, Sealer has been a total disappointment. We're learning that he needs a Calais Campbell, Christian Wilkins type to be there. And we're learning with Kenneth Grant, yes, he had a lot of upside coming out of the draft, but Mason Graham took on double teams, so that's why he was great at Michigan. Now all you have to do is double Kenneth Grant, and you're done. It's almost like you only have one D lineman on the field, and how do you expect Sealer to even get caught up in that? So everyone is struggling on the defense, and the problem is Weaver is too laissez-faire about it. Like, he gets excited when they do well, but he doesn't seem to get frustrated. And I thought that having a guy on the sideline, a former defensive player, would add some fire to this team, but they don't look angry. There's zero dogs on this defense.
Yeah.
What do you...
Well, you got linebackers who are making tackles, 6, 7, 8 yards downfield. All right. You got D-line players who are being essentially single blocked. All right. What made Sealer good the last couple of years is basically he was freed up. He wasn't getting doubled. Okay. Now, and if they did double him, the other defensive tackle essentially could make plays. All right. So you double Calais Campbell, you double Wilkinson, Sealer could make plays. All right. Now, if Sealer gets double teamed, the other guy's not making a play. Grant's not making a play. Jones isn't making a play. Nobody's making a play. So the offensive line is just going, all right, I can single block everybody else. I'll double team Sealer. And now basically all my issues are solved. All right. Nobody on the D line's making a play. The linebackers, because I'm not doubling, I can go climb immediately, aren't making plays anywhere near the line of scrimmage, even though they're getting a lot of tackles. And it's a bad place to be in right now. And they say that defensive tackle is hard for rookies to come in and play well early. A lot of that is true because in college, there's only maybe half a dozen guards in college that make it in the NFL. All right. So they're a lot better than everybody that they're playing. All right. Once you get to the NFL, these are real men here who are really good. And it's probably the best players that they've ever played against. All right. And right now, Grant's getting dominated. I don't like saying that.
He's on skates.
He's on skates. He's
basically slipping, he's sliding, he's falling.
He is getting blocked and getting blocked easily. All right. And it's hard to play in this league if you continue to get blocked easily. All right. And
how do you solve it? I haven't asked you this question. What can Anthony Weaver do? Because, and like everyone in the comments said it, like, we don't like the way the system doesn't work, the zone defense. What can they do what could be done for the D line to get pressure? Like, what everyone else said on paper, this D line is going to be phenomenal, but what can they do to adapt? What can they implement with the current roster that they have to allow the defense to be able to at least stop the run, like to at least clog the middle?
Well, so the conundrum Weaver's in a way, all right, is his Jimmies and Joes are getting their butts kicked up front. All right. Let's not beat around this bush here. All right. Chop Robinson was the number one pick for this team last year on the defensive line. They spent another number one, pick on the defensive line, essentially in the front seven on this year's draft. And those two players are among the worst players at their positions in the league right now. Okay. You can't scheme necessarily around that. The other part of this is Weaver does not want to expose his secondary. And I think that's pretty obvious from what we're seeing. All right. The easiest way to contain a run is you drop a safety into the box. Okay. You put that unblocked defender basically in the box. Give yourself numbers. What does that do? It exposes your secondary. All right. And right now, it's almost a pick your poison type of thing on defense. He doesn't want to expose his secondary because our cornerbacks aren't that good right now. All right. So he's keeping the safeties back. But his front seven, his front six, front seven cannot stop the run.
You have to send the house all day long. That's all you can do.
All right,
I want can you answer this for the only real survive guy? I appreciate you watching. Is it the same system Flo did? Because what was the cut when back when Flo was coaching? Did he not have a similar system in terms of how he played? But he just had but he had Byron Jones and Xavier Howard, right? And Javon Holland, right? That's a big difference.
Yeah, he had cornerbacks that he could basically say lockdown. All right. Did they lock down every time? No, but they were good enough to lock down opposing wide receivers. All right. And basically bring that extra player down into the box. And let's not forget, okay? And a lot of us have pointed this out. He had better players. Okay? Zach Sealer was coming into his own. Wilkinson, they drafted that. All right. Van Ginkel, okay? Jalen Phillips before his injuries. They had players. Bradley Chubb before his injury in 2023 was playing among the best football of his career. All right. There were players on these defense. There were, I said it earlier, Jimmy and Joe's over X's and O's, right? Some of these guys just weren't getting, just didn't allow themselves to be blocked, and they made plays. Right now, the Dolphins don't have that many guys there.
And they continue to draft. If you look at the last 2 years for Trop and with Grant, they drafted for they drafted for need, they didn't draft for elite. Because what you and I have all talked about, in the first round, you get premium positions. You go get your corner, you go get your how different his defense would be. You can go get Will Howard looks great this year. He fell to the second round. Well, you go get the player that is a premium position, not go get your need. Because if you go to get your need, you're letting all these great players pass you by. And by the way, if you look at the last couple of drafts, every time they've traded up, the person's been a bust. Articles were written like this all week. When they went to go get Eichenberg, when they went to go get Wright, when they went to go get now Jonah, every time they move up in the draft, the pick ends up being worse than the person who gets to pick 1 or 2 picks after them.
No, I didn't mind the Chop Robinson draft because it was a premium position. Get somebody who can rush the passer. All right. Toward the end of last year, he started playing better. This year, he hasn't played very well at all. I had a big problem with the Grant draft, not because Grant, I think, is a bad player or anything like that. I just don't see defensive tackle as being a premium position, especially when you needed help in the secondary and you had secondary help available to you. You could have made that draft pick. All right. And I think the Dolphins would be better off if they'd have done that. And my light went out again. I have no idea why it keeps going
out. You want the light going off? Because you're in the state of Florida and the light's been going out in Miami for a very long time.
But yeah, it's just the players aren't very good. All right. And the drafts to improve the overall quality of player on the roster hasn't worked out. I mean, like I said, you have Chop Robinson, Grant, and Savania basically, if not the worst player at their positions in the NFL right now, they're among them. Yeah. And those are premium picks that you just can't afford to keep missing. All it looks like they probably got they got a hit on Paul, the left tackle. He's playing pretty well. He's been all right. But
because he also has to support Jonah.
Well, it's one of those things. All right, you're left.
Tua's not getting sacked a lot from that side. They're not coming around that way. I can promise you that.
Well, Savani has given up a lot of pressures.
Yeah,
All
but
right.
now I'm saying from the position of Patrick Paul. Patrick Paul's not on his butt.
Patrick Paul has played much better than I thought he would this year. All right, and he's not great at run blocking, but he's pretty stout when it comes to pass protection.
Yeah. I want to talk about this a little bit. Not talk about the offensive line. Tua's not getting a ton of pressure in the sense that Tua's not. I feel Tua's basically running for his life more from his own fear than out of the pressure because he's not getting hit a lot in games. Justin Herbert, we'll talk about the Chargers game after, is getting hit a lot more. But why in the Carolina game? And yes, Derek Brown's a phenomenal player. What was wrong with what Mike McDaniel was doing where they could not establish any sense of the run game? The second running, Achane, who had 4 rushes for 23, had more yards than all of our running backs combined on 14 carries. So what went totally bananas and wrong? Because the week before, or even before the game, the issue with Tua was the fact that this offensive line was good towards the run, and they were difficult. They were porous at pass protection. But in last game, you're playing a very, very porous team, and they couldn't establish the run in any way, shape, or form. What can they do to fix that? And what was the main thing you saw, whether it's in the All-22 or in general throughout watching the game, that they could just not establish the run?
So this is going to make some people angry. I'll say it this way. All right. The more I watch Achane as a running back, the more I see him not being a very instinctual runner. Okay. Mm-hmm. There were plays to be made against Carolina. There were cutbacks to be made. There were holes to be made that were being made that he just did not see. Okay. Now, saying that the run game would not have been great regardless, but I haven't looked it up, but I would say that he was not getting the yards that he probably should have been getting. All right. And it made the run game look a lot worse. All right. The other thing is I really don't understand. I really don't understand why Gordon is not seeing the ball more.
Not at all.
Okay. It doesn't make sense. All right. It just doesn't make sense to me why he's not seeing the ball more. And especially now with Hill gone, let Achane run some routes. You know, they actually had both of them on the field, Gordon and Achane on the field.
That touchdown against Carolina was exactly why Achane is supposed to be in space.
Correct. All right. It's a phenomenal catch. It was a great play by him to get both feet down and you know, and it was a really good pass by Tua. Don't get me wrong. All right. It was put in a position where only Achane was going to make a play, and Achane made a great play. All right. But getting back to the run game, there were plays to be made against Carolina that just simply weren't. And again, Achane has been the best player on offense this year. Don't get me wrong. All right. But he is just not a very instinctual runner. And there were plays to be made, at least yards to be gained. All right. Instead of gaining 2 yards, there were maybe 4 or 5 that he could have gained. But again, in those 5 possessions where you punted, all right, after going up 17-0 and then 17-7, and you get the ball back, in those 5 possessions from that point on, Miami probably wins the game if they get 2 more first downs. All right? Think of it that way. Okay? Just possessing the ball another 5 minutes in that last 40, okay, probably wins you the game.
The craziest stat, Greg, that they kept on saying is the Miami Dolphins are number 1 in the NFL in 3rd and long. Now explain to everybody why that's an awful thing to be first in.
Well, you know, first First, it is a nice stat to have. All right, it is a stat, but it's a nice, it's a nice one to have.
Third and long.
You don't want to be in a lot of third and longs, but being able to convert in third and longs is usually a good thing. Okay, but the problem is they're in third and long a lot. All right, they got a lot of opportunities to do that. They have. When Hill was on the field, they had individual playmakers that could turn a short pass into a longer gain. All right. Waller coming back the last 2 weeks has shown he can do that too. All right. But again, they are so constantly behind the yard sticks, right? They're constantly in second and long and third and long and things like that. It's just not a good place to be, but they convert them. But when you're an offense, and especially Miami, because for some reason they just are against having big plays anymore, like they used to. If you're going to sustain drives, it's not a good way to sustain drives to be constantly in third and long.
1st and 10, 2nd and 13, 3rd and 14. It's unbelievable how they go backwards. They go backwards.
Yeah, they go backwards, and because they don't attack the outside of the field in the passing game well, they throw a lot of screens. And when it works, it works. When it doesn't, it looks bad. All right. And you get behind the sticks again. Their running game has gotten really predictable.
Oh.
Okay. Very predictable. Because they're always running out of the shotgun. One of the things that I think would help, Miami's run game is get under center, line the running back up behind the quarterback, and basically look at the defense and figure out which side makes the most sense to run the ball to.
Yep.
When they're offset to one side on the shotgun, basically that the run of the game is going to go to the opposite side. So if Achane's on Tua's left in the shotgun, the run's
to the right.
Right. Okay. And vice versa. If he's on the right, the run's going to the left. It's a tell. Okay. The teams that are running the ball well with a running back right now are doing it from under center. Just go under center a little bit. All right. If there's a criticism of McDaniel and not wanting to change things up, that would be one of them.
Yeah.
But I don't know how comfortable Tua is under center. All right. There could be a reason that we don't know as to why they're not doing it more. And honestly, it's one of those questions that I wish Miami media would ask.
I know they're
fantastic. Why aren't you under center more?
Yeah, you might come up with a crazy answer. I don't know. But no, I just want Finn Sammy's in the comments, guys. I just want to take a moment because through our network, whether it's Finn Sammy, whether it's Dahl, Courtney, they're all down there for Fan Club Weekend. People are probably going to wonder, why didn't I go down to Fan Club Weekend? I'll tell you exactly why I'm not down for Fan Club Weekend. One, the tickets it's Canadian Thanksgiving weekend, so it's insanely expensive to get to Miami, especially with a lot of stuff going on. But at the same time, I made a commitment to myself last season. I said it on the network, and I wanted to be there. Then until they fire McDaniel, I'm not doing one thing to give any sense of financial contribution to this football team. I will wear the merchandise that I own. I'll have my license plate with the Dolphins logos. I will have everything surrounding me. I have enough Dolphins memorabilia to feed, to basically clothe the entire network. I love this team, but I will not go and do anything until they fire Mike McDaniel. Because to me, I'd rather analyze the game and be here on a podcast and do that. I don't have a reason. If I was in Bow Campers tomorrow, where everyone's going to be, and I'm happy, then everyone's going to start singing. How can people actually buy? I'm telling you, Greg. I said this last night I snuck onto East Century Boys after I did On Deck with Russ, and I started singing the song. Like, people are going to be singing the song. Miami has Dolphins, the greatest football team. We're in the air, we're on the ground, we're always in control. When you say Miami, you're talking Super Bowl. I'm saying in the air, on the ground, you have no control. When you say Miami, you're saying toilet bowl. Like I can't sing the song properly, right? Like the level of anger that I will have because what will happen is I will go to Hard Rock. I will be all excited that they're going to win. And then within a couple of minutes, I'm going to literally be that guy who's trying to climb over onto the field to go basically chase Mike McDaniel out of the stadium because I can't, once I'm in that moment, I don't know how I'll react. Like you can't put Stan in a place where things are not healthy. You can't put him with his mortal enemy, which is Mike McDaniel when it comes to this team, because he's taken away the joy from me. Because I'll tell you, I look back sometimes, and I sometimes watch them, and I look back at Brian Flores, who was some of the most boring press conferences, but he sat there very close to the camera like this, and he would talk about the game and analyze it. McDaniel was talking word salad. At least Flores answered the question and looked at you when you answered the question. So, ask the question. So for me, that's why I'm not there. I hope everyone has a phenomenal time, guys. Finn Sammy, Courtney, anyone who's down there, Dolphins Thirsty, whoever, check them out at Boat Campers. I'm sure Lou's going to be there. Everyone who's there to support everyone. It's a great weekend to be with each other, but it's just probably going to feel more like a morgue in the stadium and at these places than it will be a party, because there's nothing to enjoy about it. And I want to segue a little bit, and I want to give kudos to Finn's Faithful Podcast and George and Jason Zarni. Today they had Tony Pauline on, which we support their network. We were tweeting about it. I watched the whole show. But Tony Pauline from Sports Kita, before the season even started talking about the Mike McDaniel concept and the fact that he may not be there depending on what happens the first 7 or 8 weeks. And then this week, the same source he had for the situation a while back, a couple of years ago, with Tom Brady and the tampering there, turned out to be the same source, talking about how this could be another week or two, max week 8 for Mike McDaniel. And it was really, you never know what sources are going to be able to tell you. Everything is a rumor till it comes true. But to hear this week, I don't get any sense. I thought it was going to happen after the Patriots game. I thought it was going to happen after the Bills game. I thought it was going to happen last week. I don't know what to think anymore. I don't know what it will take. Will it take Jim Harbaugh walking across the field, the coach you always wanted from his alma mater? Will it take the fact that Tua Tagovailoa, who is injured with a hip and a thumb and who knows what he has, Mr. Beleaguered injury, even though he's going to be playing because he was full practice today, going against Justin Herbert. And if they lose, and then who knows what's going to be flying over the stadium, and the fact that it is fan club weekend, what will it take, Greg? Like I don't know what to believe anymore. Like I'm like Sammy convinced. I don't think he wants. I think he's running it more like a frat club and like the fact that they're friends with each other. Because I was talking briefly, and I'm just going to segue a little bit to baseball, how Aaron Boone with the Yankees and how him and Brian Cashman, who's the general manager, has been there 27 years as the general manager, 30 plus years with the team, and Hal Steinbrenner, they're all buddy friends, and that's why they don't make changes. I feel like Ross likes Greer, he likes McDaniel, and that's why he keeps him around, in spite of the win. And if it means we're not winning, even though he wants to win. So when you look at what's going on with the talk about with the report from Tony Pauline and everything like that, where do you stand on this potential change for the season? Because there's nothing to look forward to. That's the thing. If Ross fires Mike McDaniel and fires Chris Greer, I guarantee you Brett will be on a show every single day. Brett literally will probably run naked across in his office, where he is. He'll be going bananas. Like, what will it take? Because I guarantee you, Stephen Ross, whether we win this year or not, if they lose on Sunday and he fires Mike McDaniel and Chris Greer, there will be like they won a Super Bowl party. You, me, Brett, Malloy, Thirsty will even come back, and Courtney and Bobby, everyone will be singing the song, "Celebrate Good Times." Come on. Because we'll have something that we got out of the season. We finally got the monkey off our back. We finally made a significant change. to regenerate this organization. Because, Greg, what do we have to look forward to? Look at all these teams that are in our division. Drake May going in with Mike Vrabel, new coach, young quarterback, into Buffalo. We've never been able to go into Buffalo and win. The Jackson Dart with Brian Daboll last night, Rondell Robinson, Cam Scatterbo, taking care of the freaking Eagles. Like, what do we have to look forward to? So we need a change, but what is going to take for Ross to actually make a change? Because I guarantee you, he hasn't realized the amount of gain he will get in the fan base if he actually fires these guys. He's going to gain a lot of respect back from his fan base. He actually cares about this football team. So I went my little rant, but the floor is yours.
No, it's we can even go back to Monday night. Okay, you change your coaching staff in Jacksonville, and now Trevor Lawrence is making plays, and he's a quarterback of a 4-1 team. All right. Now, granted, the AFC South isn't the AFC East. It doesn't have the big, 800-pound gorilla that is the Buffalo Bills now, and stuff like that. But you know what? You change systems. You bring in a different coach. You give a talented quarterback, somebody else to talk to and things like that. All right, they're playing good football now. You would think that would give Ross and Greer and at least something to think about and something to consider for this year. I'm just not sure it's going to happen. All right, if Tua is back on this team and going to be the starting quarterback for 2026, is McDaniel going to be the coach for it? I think he is. All right, and they're going to say that Tyreek Hill being hurt and this and that, and our recent draft picks are not going to be as bad as they are this year, and so on and so forth. And they're going to try to run it back that way. I hope I'm wrong. Like I said, I thought they should have been fired after the Thursday night game. All right, when you had the long week, but right now there's nothing to look forward to. There really isn't.
Zero.
Right? And look, and I don't want to discourage people from going to games. Okay,
it's a phenomenal experience. Go.
I love going to football games. I love watching live football. All right. In a couple of weeks, I'm probably going to be in Atlanta for that game. All right. I'm not going to go to South Florida this year, though. I've been there enough. I'm just not that interested, in seeing this team. But yeah, I mean, it just at some point you got to give the fans hope. All right, that's what the off season's about. That's what this season's about. And we talked about it at the beginning of the show. Every year you come in and you say, okay, if these certain things happen, they might not be as bad as what I thought, or they got a shot. All right. And then 5 weeks in, none of that stuff happens. And you just look at this and go, what are we going to do the next 12 weeks? All right. And the fact that Tua is basically on the team in 26 leads me to believe that they're going to probably roll this thing back. And I just don't know what to do with it. I don't know how you could go into 26 expecting something different if you're rolling back, everything. And essentially, we get a preview of that this year. The offense was basically rolled back from last year, and last year's offense was not very good. And so far, we're seeing an offense that I think is ranked, 28th in the league right now? 27th in the league in total yards?
Yeah.
Okay. It's not surprising when you look at it. They didn't make any really substantial changes. So,
how often, Greg, have you remembered that a team scored? Steelers have scored last only like 4 games. They've scored a little less. But how many football teams win in the NFL when they're averaging 21 points a game?
It's hard. It's hard to win when you're only averaging that few points. All right. I always come back to this. Essentially, every team in the NFL, all right, you knock off the bottom 5 teams and you knock off the 5 top teams, okay? Basically, those other 20 plus teams are all basically the same.
Yeah.
Okay. And the difference between those teams is all of those teams are going to score on 4 or 5 possessions a game. All right. It's the ones who score the most touchdowns. The ones who score 24, 27 points a game are the ones who are going to do good. It's not that they score more, have more scoring drives. They probably don't when it's all said and done. They're scoring touchdowns and you're kicking field goals. All right. And again, Miami scored on 4 possessions last game. They scored on their first 3, and then they scored 1 at the end of the game. But against this defense, with this defense that you're taking on the road, you better start expecting to score 27, 28 points. You better start. It should be expected to score 4 touchdowns for you to win the game.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Yeah. So we won't go into. We've talked a lot about the coaches. I think we know where we stand, but until they actually do something, until they actually clean house, I think we all agree you could fire McDaniel, but if Greer's still the general manager, nothing will change. And that's why if you look at every single thing that Ross has done, the half measures isn't going to work. Half measures is not going to work. So they better do something significant. Because I don't even care if they keep Greer in somewhere in the organization at this point. I just don't want to hear. I don't want to see him at any press conferences. I don't want to see him talking about any trades. Nothing. I don't want to hear it. So this Sunday, people are going to be venturing down to Miami, and I want to see the latest. Just I'm going to look quickly because I checked yesterday. But I think you keep on going down. Let's see if the fans showing up to the game now that they're all in Miami for party this week. I'm just curious on StubHub if it's actually changed or the prices have gone up. Last I checked, it was $21 Canadian, which is about $15 American. Let's go check out the tickets for the Dolphins and the Dolphins. Let's check this out. The latest, cheapest ticket is for me if I want to be at the game. Let's see. Oh, it's gone down. Now it's $18 Canadian, which will equal $12. So let's think about that. You can go to an NFL football game for less than it costs to get. I did this once a couple weeks ago. Than this. This costs more. This costs about $12 or $13. You can sneak it. You can bring it to the stadium every game, and you can get your favorite drink soft drink refilled as much as you want. That costs more. You want to get tacos at the game? That will cost you about $30. Here, we're talking $12 for people like Sammy and people like Courtney or George or Finn Faithful and all these people who have spent their hard-earned money on season tickets, including you, for many, many years. How embarrassing is it, Greg, before we talk about the actual game, that someone can go to an NFL football game on fan club weekend, mind you, and somebody who probably spent season ticket money, probably $100 a ticket, $70, $80 a ticket, are willing to give it up and lose money not to go to this football game? Because StubHub is a resale site. So how does that make – that's crazy.
No, it is crazy. It's absolutely insane. All right. I said it for the Jets game, on the Monday night. This is a Monday night football game in Miami against the New York Jets, and you could go for $20. All right. I mean, it's insane.
Go see a movie for more.
Let's say
a movie.
Yeah. And it just, when the product's not good, all right, this is what happens. And I expect there's going to be a lot of empty seats in the stadium.
Oh yeah,
as well. All right.
You think there'll be something flying over?
I think there's probably a chance of that's going to be happening. All right.
But I think it'll be all about Ross. Honestly, this is going to be about Ross. It's not going to be fired down. It's going to be directed directly at that owner.
Yeah. So I'm just going to relay a story, right? So 2 weeks ago, I was in Vegas, and I ended up going to the Vegas Chicago game. All right, we took clients out there. I had clients from Chicago there, and we were talking about. Well,
Beautiful
we've known
stadium
about.
from what I hear. I heard it's a beautiful stadium.
It's a very nice place to go watch a football game. I'll say it that way, right? It's kind of generic. I wish they'd have done a little bit more to it, but that's neither here nor there. But we knew about this trade show. We knew about this for months. We knew we were going to go to the game for months. I told the guy who was going to buy the tickets for us, I was like, don't buy them right now. Don't buy them before the season starts. I go, if anything, if the Bears suck and the Raiders suck, the prices will come down. And it was still the highest when we bought them like 3 days before the game. It was still the highest priced game on StubHub because of all the Chicago fans going to Vegas, but it was down about 60% from what it was preseason, right? When everybody had hope. Okay. So if people bought their tickets for this game in Miami preseason because it was fan weekend and everything else, this is what happens. This is what happens when you don't know how good your team's going to be. Because you could get in the stadium now for half the cost that it does to park there. It's $25 to park there. You get in for $12 now. That's where we're at.
Yeah. So now we're going to talk a little bit more about the Chargers game. Heading into this game, we're going against a team that has started off the season strong, but has struggled the last couple of games because of the fact that their O-line is a little beleaguered. But what are your overall thoughts of the whole Chargers before we get into the more nitty-gritty of the expectations you have for the Chargers heading into the season?
Yeah, I mean, it should be a game that favors Miami. The Chargers are coming from LA, from the West Coast to the East Coast to play a 1:00 game. That usually favors the home team. That usually favors the East Coast team, right? They are struggling with injuries to key positions. All right, Miami. What I think we're going to be, they're going to be starting like their fourth string running back. Okay, in this game because their first 2 in 5 weeks basically have season-ending injuries. That should be an advantage for Miami. All right. Their 2 really good, highly drafted offensive tackles are out. That should be an advantage for Miami. I think I read somewhere where they're going to bench their center for this game. Okay. I mean, so the excuse of offensive line should not be in this one. Our defensive line should eat on this game. All right. But they got a really good quarterback, despite what some Miami fans want to say about him. And they got some really good wide receivers. This is going to be a really good test for our secondary to see what they can come up with. I don't have a whole lot of confidence in how this game's going to go. I don't see Miami's offense scoring a ton of points in this game. I just don't. So if Miami's going to win, it's going to be a low-scoring game. It's going to be like 20-13. It's going to be 17-16. It's going to be something like that for them to have a chance in this game. If LA puts up a bunch of points, Miami's not going to be able to come back. They're just not going to be able to score that many points because I still like their defense. I still think their defense. They got some dogs on that defense. And for the most part, their defense is somewhat healthy. So
you talked briefly about the fact that you don't see this becoming this is a 1-5. After Sunday, this is a 1-5 football team in Miami. How much pressure do you think is on Tua to outperform? Is Tua thinking about beating the Chargers, or is he thinking about beating Herbert?
I hope he's thinking about beating the Chargers.
What do you think of it? You hope he is. What do you think?
I don't know. Look, these two are always going to be linked together because of where they were drafted. All right. In Miami drafting Tua, next pick, LA gets Herbert and stuff like that. So these two are always going to be connected when it comes to that. I would think there should be a personal rivalry between the two. I think I would want to one up him, if I was Tua. I don't know if that's in his makeup. I just don't know. I went to the last game, the first game of what was it, 2023, with Tua in LA. And it was a phenomenal game with both of those quarterbacks playing really, really well. And Miami came out with a win. So I don't know. I would think that they should be a measuring stick against each other. Let's put it that way.
What are the keys in your mind of the Dolphins potentially overcoming the pressure and giving their fans a win against the Chargers? What could they possibly do? Is there anything they could possibly do? Any given Sunday, but what can they do based on what you see?
The first couple of weeks of the season, Waller was a joke to Miami fans, right? Leave it to Chris Greer to get a guy who was retired and quit because of injuries, and then he's injured and can't play, right? I think they got to get him the ball. As much as I like Waddle, I think Waller's the key to the offense right now in the passing game. You got to get him the ball. You got to make him productive. He's got for Miami to win, he's going to have to be an 8 to 10 catch person for 100+ yards and maybe 2 touchdowns. I think that it's as simple as that. You know what you're going to get out of Achane, Waddle is Waddle. I don't expect he might make a big play, but then again, he made a big play last game, and he might take 2 or 3 games off now, right, between big plays. So I think it's got to be on Waller. I really do. And how low we've come to say a guy that's only played 2 weeks and hasn't played in 2 years is now the key to the offense, in my opinion. It's a ridiculous thing to say, but I think that's what they need to do to win.
We have over 100. We have almost 100 people watching all across on a Friday night. I know there's a lot going on with baseball and other things, but appreciate everyone watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm going to save a lot of my predictions and everything for Sunday for the pregame show. I know you're going to be traveling, but overall, what are your hopes for this weekend? I know you never want your team to lose, but is there any part of you that just wants this to be over?
I enjoy watching football. I enjoy watching the Miami Dolphins. Even though they frustrate me and they give me all kinds of angst, I'm still enjoying the season. I just don't think they're very good. And in that right now, what I want to watch and what I'm looking for is just ways for them to get better going into 2026. So can Grant get better? Can Savanea get better? Can Chop finally show up and do something? All right. The players that are going to be the core of 26, can they get better? That's what I'm going to be watching for. I don't expect them to win many more games, to be honest with you. I really don't. There's 12 games left. If they win 4 more, I'd be surprised. I just don't think they're very good. And I don't know. I just want to see improvement by certain players now, and give me something to look forward to in 2026.
Okay. For me, like I said, people know where I stand. I want this team to win, but my expectation is always low. I predicted a win last week just because I felt like they actually could pull off a second victory, but even they shocked me there. But no, overall, I'm not even. I used to get very nervous for football games. Now my apathy, and the topic of today's show was the season's been a loss, and the longer they wait, the development of this team and the future of this franchise and the potential to basically plan your future for the 26-27 season is already going down the tubes if you wait till the end of the year and you have to start competing with other teams to rebuild your franchise into a team that can actually be sustainably good for a very long time. So for me, it's just football. I'm just enjoying watching football, but I know I have zero expectations of anything good happening on a Sunday, Monday, or Thursday with this football team. So,
well, and I'll say this, all right. I think you're going to get to the point in this season. It could be 6 weeks from now. It could be 8 weeks from now or something like that, where the season's basically lost. All right. I would love to see just personnel changes. Give Ewers a chance. All right. Let's see if he can bring some energy to the team. I doubt that it's going to happen, but you have to, if you watched the game last night, you had to be a little bit jealous of the Giants and their fans, right? Because of Jackson Dart, right? You had to be a little bit jealous because of it. He brought energy. He brought, to the point where Russell Wilson's on the field for 2 plays and he gets booed off, all right, the field because they wanted the kid back, all right? God, I want to see that.
Yeah.
I want to feel that for Miami.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see what happens.
All right. Now, I appreciate everyone for watching. I appreciate everyone who was in the comments. Brad, I appreciate Achane Genius, David, Coach Jay, DSG as always, Lou at the beginning. I really appreciate it. Only the Real Survive. I really appreciate Kedshaw, everyone watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We never sleep on the FTSN tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. Don't forget to check out the Whole Bar podcast with Bobby and Josh. They're going to be recounting Crown Jewel in Perth. Then on Sunday, you'll be catching myself and Bobby on the pregame show and the postgame show when the Dolphins face the Chargers. And then throughout the week, you'll be following all the great content that's happening on this network. So, guys, any final words, Greg?
No, just I appreciate everybody for watching us today. It's going to be fun. Enjoy the game. It's still football. We can get down in the dumps a little bit. We can show a little bit of apathy here and there, but it's still football. It's still fun, and enjoy fan weekend. It's a great place to go watch a game. It's a great place to hang out with friends. And I don't ever want to discourage people from doing that. So have fun down there, and go Fins. Fins up.
Fins up.